Hi everyone, welcome to Mama's Little Homestead. We are out in the back garden today and I'm going to take you all along for the ride as I harvest and dry our perennial herbs. So before I get started with my pruners, I am actually going to harvest the last of our onions. This one is finally starting to flop over. Onion. So what we've got growing over here is thyme, and the one that's flowering right now with these beautiful purple flowers is lemon thyme. And I do think it's worth planting both. So thyme has this really herbaceous scent that is amazing, especially on chickens. It has some medicinal uses, so I throw a ton of it. Anytime we grill chicken thighs or make chicken soup, I put a ton of thyme in that. And this over here is the lemon thyme. So it's a little bit brighter in color. The foliage is a little bit larger, but where it really shines is in that smell. So this would be really good on like a lemon chicken recipe because it actually does have that citrus scent. There's nothing citrusy about it except it just smells like a lemon. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this back. I'm gonna cut a lot of this back because we eat a ton of dried thyme in the winter, and I've been able to harvest a lot, even from the kitchen garden that's really close to our patio. So we've been eating that a lot fresh this summer. This is what I want to store in glass jars after it's dried for our winter eating. The best time to harvest your herbs is in the morning, especially if you're wanting them for medicinal purposes. The oil content is the best first thing in the morning. All right, so that's all for what we've got growing in the back garden that's ready for harvest. Let's go inside the fence and see what we've got going in the tea garden. Here we are in the tea garden. I call this my tea garden because this is where we have all of our peppermint, our chamomile, which is on that side, and our calendula, which is sprinkled throughout. So I've been harvesting the calendula like crazy, so there probably aren't too many blooms. I'm letting some of it go to seed so that we'll have it for next year. I'm saving those seeds so I can put them where I would like. And you can see that this mint is going crazy. Now, if you're planting mint for the first time, I strongly suggest that unless you want your mint to completely take over your beds, you plant it, keep it in a pot and plant the pot into the ground. The pot will keep the roots contained. Mint is very weedy. It will spread like crazy. So if you want a ground cover that smells delicious, plant mint and don't plant it in the pot. But if you want it to stay contained and stay to a specific area, you should plant it in the pot. I wanted it to take over a little bit so that we could have enough for drinking peppermint tea. Peppermint tea is one of my favorites, especially when I am sick. I like a Starbucks medicine ball type flavor. I don't know if people still drink that. A bunch of peppermint tea, a good whopping dollop of honey, lemon juice. So I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna cut a bunch of mint. It dries really, really well, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. So mint is another perennial, and for us it actually comes back quicker than almost anything else. It comes back quicker than the grass, even after winter. So it is nice to be able to get out and harvest some of these things in spring when you have been missing harvesting all over throughout the winter. All right, so here we are in the chicken run with this sage plant. This sage is actually the only thing to have survived the chickens. So if you're looking for something to plant in your chicken run, I suggest sage. If you have any suggestions of what to plant that will survive the chickens, I've landscaped this area so many times and the chickens have loved devouring everything I have put in here. I put comfrey in here, that didn't survive. So if you do have suggestions, let me know. So I'm just gonna cut back this sage in chunks. So it's so hardy and vigorous, it doesn't really matter where I make my cuts. This comes back every year, no matter how aggressively I prune it back. Sage is something that's really amazing on poultry. It's fantastic in your fall sort of like roasted potatoes, and it's good with some squashes. It's great to fry up a little sage and put it on your butternut squash soups and things like that. Oh, smells like Thanksgiving. Sage. So when I'm drying herbs, I like to dry a lot of it because when they are dehydrated, they will crumble down into, they'll crumble down into dust if that's how you want them. And sometimes that's nice for storing because if you do crush them up really, really finely, they don't take up hardly any space to store. So if you are limited on space, I actually would suggest that. So we've harvested our perennial herbs that have been growing in ground for multiple years. Now I want to take you right off the kitchen where this year we added an herb garden. I love being able to just step right out the door when I am cooking and grab a handful of fresh herbs. I will say that I'm probably not going to preserve any of this basil, and you can see that it is starting to flower up. It's actually done that a few times, and what I do is I just go ahead and pinch off where it is starting to flower so that it keeps putting out leaves and keeps producing. That is why I still have basil here in this garden in mid-August. If I had let it go to seed and not gotten those off, then it would have been done by now. But I'm not probably going to preserve any of this. I'll still use it for fresh eating. It smells, even just picking those flowers off, it smells incredible. It's so fragrant and so fantastic. But I really like basil more as a seasonal crop. When you dry it, it doesn't retain hardly any of the scent or flavor. I do still have basil salts preserved from last year. So I am gonna go ahead and leave that for fresh eating. Same with the marjoram. I just feel like there is not a lot here in terms of preserving it or putting it back. I would rather just eat it fresh. Same thing with parsley. I feel like the parsley just does not have the same kind of, doesn't pack the same kind of punch that fresh parsley does. But I will go ahead on this side of the bed. But over here on this side of the bed, we do have rosemary. I've harvested a good amount, and I've done that, use that in roasting potatoes and things like that. It's been marvelous. I am going to try to preserve some of that because I love me some rosemary, and I feel like this is a good amount of tarragon for drying. It is worthy. It just has like this, it's really herbal scent. I don't know, it's kind of hard to place it. It's a little bit similar to the sage, I guess. I don't know if you've had tarragon. Comment, let me know what you think it smells like. And then this oregano, I can't grow enough oregano. I love it on everything. It is hugely useful. I put tons of it in our chicken soups because it is so useful for its medicinal properties. It has like an antibacterial type. Love that. It's so good on chicken. It's good in Cajun. It's good on everything. It's used a lot in Mexican cuisine, so I'll put that in our tacos and things like that. I'm not an herbalist. I am not qualified to give you medical advice in any way, so don't take my medical advice. Sometimes people will say take a probiotic if you are having oregano tea for different stomach bugs, because it is so potent. The antimicrobial effects are so potent, just like if you were taking an antibiotic. Don't take my word for that. I am not a doctor. I'm not an herbalist. I am just a home-growing mama trying to keep her kids healthy as possible with remedies that are as natural as possible. That being said, let's trim some of this up. That's about it for the herbs that we're going to harvest today. Now I'm going to take you guys into the garage and show you my herb drying area, which I am so excited about. I used to try to use our little Ninja air fryer as a dehydrator, which you absolutely can do. Just know that it is a very small space, and if you want to preserve the massive amount of herbs as I hope to, it's not going to probably be enough unless you're running it all day, every day. And who doesn't love an option where you can just set it and forget it? I love things that I can cure. You do need space, but if you have space to lay things like that out, you just lay them out and then you come back a few weeks later and it's done. So it takes time in the sense that it takes a few weeks, but it doesn't take a lot of my time. And that's a really precious resource that I am trying to preserve as a homeschooling mom of 4 kids who's trying to grow a lot of our own food. Welcome to my little corner of the garage. You can see I've got our fall seeds started and growing under the grow lights here. Yes, this is a changing table, but you can see it also doubles as a gardening shelf, and we don't need it as a changing table anymore, so we're going to make the most of what we have on hand, which is also why, even though I desperately want to do soil blocking, I am just growing our seeds this year in old potting material that we already had, because it is a lot cheaper to just repurpose what you had. I do believe that the soil blocks will be a really worthwhile investment. So what I'm going to do now is I have this herb dryer, super cheap, super inexpensive, from Amazon, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different levels. Unzip the caddy and make sure you have given your herbs a good rinse before you're laying them out to dry. And you want to lay them out in a single layer as much as possible. If it's not dried completely before you put it away, that's when you run the risk of food spoilage. So you don't want to get mold and things like that, which will ruin your whole herb stores for the winter, which defeats the purpose. So I'm just gonna tuck these beauties into bed, and that is all it takes. I'll come back and check on these every few days to a couple weeks, depending on which herb I am putting in each cavity. Harvest, rinse, dry, repeat. I do think it is worth mentioning that you do not need to buy an herb dryer like this, although this was pretty cheap. It was about 20 bucks on Amazon. Even cheaper is this twine that I have strung up over here. This is actually where I dried my garlic this year. We got, I'm hoping, a year's worth of garlic. Although it is so delicious, our garlic consumption has gone way up. So we might not actually have a year's worth because we've been eating it up so quickly. You can just tie, so you could take a bunch, tie it on with your twine, and you can just hang it, and it will hang dry fine. I like this because it's protected from my kids, and the netting does, with especially the bigger leaves, going to catch them and keep them from going on the floor. Last thing I want to do today is to show you how I store everything once it is dried. So first I want to talk about how to tell if it actually is dried. These are some sage leaves that I harvested earlier this week, and you can see they are sort of changing color a little bit and a little crunchy, but they're still really soft to the touch. So they are not ready to be put away yet. They still need some more drying. This is some of the mint, and it has been put into a mason jar. So you could see, like, you hear that crunch? Can you hear that? It just crumbles to the touch, and you can see this is how much I got from our last harvest. I didn't do as much as I did today, but it does, as I said, dry up very, very small. Gets that nice crunch to it. Still smells amazing. And that's the thing about dried food, is it lasts such a long time. Herbs especially. This will last for years, and it may lose some of its flavor, it may lose some of its scent and potency, but as far as spoilage goes, it's going to last a long time. So this is our calendula, and once they are dry, I just put them in a mason jar. If this is all I plan to get for the year, then I do not put an oxygen absorber in. You're just going to be opening up the one jar then and closing it. There's no point to having an oxygen absorber. If I was going to have multiple jars of the same thing, then I would throw in an oxygen absorber. You can see on this calendula that I have left the blossoms whole. I've also done this with my chamomile. Oh, I just love the smell of chamomile. Floral herb, you can't beat it. But when you do your tea, you want to just crumple it up, and then you'll see it gets like you would see it in a tea bag. But leaving it all whole together it keeps the surface area small so that it doesn't decay as quickly. So if I just get one jar, that's all I do to preserve. Just close the jar. If I'm gonna have more than one jar, I will throw an oxygen absorber in. So there you have it. That is our process for harvesting and drying our herbs and our tea. These make really amazing gifts. Not only is it something that you have grown yourself and prepared by the sweat of your brow and the labor of your hands, but there is just nothing to me that is more precious that I can give away. Obviously, there are things that are more precious, but there's nothing more precious that I can give away than something that I have cultivated and grown with my own two hands. So consider that if I have given you some of our produce. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and help us feed these little minions.